Welcome to Chronic Conversations, the podcast that brings a voice to the stories behind chronic symptoms. I'm your host, Katherine Rose, certified integrative health practitioner, founder of ThriveWell, and soon to be published author. After years of battling unexplained symptoms and finally getting a diagnosis of Hashimoto's, I turned my pain into purpose. Now I help women just like you feel seen, heard, and validated while uncovering the root causes of symptoms and helping to create lasting wellness. Each week, I'll share insights from my own journey, some proven strategies that I use with clients, and conversations with fellow experts and warriors. You're not alone, and you can thrive. Now let's get into today's conversation. Hey, everybody. Welcome back to Chronic Conversations. I'm your host, Katherine Williams, and I am so thrilled to be here. I hope you enjoyed last month's episode and also hope you enjoy this one. So today we're going to focus on autoimmune disease and lifestyle changes. So a lot of people with autoimmune disease can benefit from making various lifestyle changes, like, for example, removing gluten and dairy from their diet to help reduce inflammation. I know that it has helped me tremendously, but it hasn't always been easy. And I'm sure many of you listening have tried some sort of lifestyle change only to fall back into old habits days later. And it's hard. It's hard to make big changes. So I'm here today with Gina Worful, a registered dietitian, among many other things, to learn how to make these lifestyle changes easier. I have easier in quotations, and to help reduce the overwhelm and provide an understanding of why making these lifestyle changes with willpower alone won't work long term. And everything that I've learned from Gina has been mind-blowing and just fascinating. So I'm thankful to have her here.
Thanks, Katherine.
You're welcome.
Yeah, excited to be here with you. I really appreciate what you're doing and just kind of like paving the way for people who are so overwhelmed. I know autoimmunity is a really big challenge and a lot to take on.
Yeah, it really is. So I want to get into you a little bit and tell people about you. So I love that we have here that you're not a typical dietitian, and that is true.
Mm-hmm.
So tell us a little bit more about you and your health journey and kind of why you're not the typical dietitian.
Yeah, I definitely take a very different approach, and I'll kind of share a little bit of a story that I actually tend to not tell a lot of people, but I think that it might be really helpful for anyone who's listening here. So rewinding, like I've always been interested in health and nutrition. And so I became a registered dietitian and got my master's degree in human nutrition and was doing all the things and trying to eat really healthy. And I found that it was really hard and really overwhelming. And it felt like I was thinking about food all day. It was really difficult. It felt like a daily fight. And when I was working with clients, like they were also really struggling. And what I started to notice was over the years, it was very difficult for me to stick to my healthy eating. I was kind of having those times where I would get really motivated and focus on all the things that I knew I was supposed to be doing, but then I would find that I would self-sabotage and I would get stuck in these loops. And over time, it felt like my health was starting to slip even the harder that I tried. And so I noticed like my body shifting and I started getting like all these signs of inflammation. And I was having these really big hormone imbalances that I like couldn't figure out. I couldn't correct. It felt like my body just felt very inflamed. I was getting rashes all over my body. My labs were really off. I had really bad anxiety. I couldn't sleep at night. And it was like getting worse and worse and worse. And I couldn't figure out what it was. Well, come to find out, at the time I had breast implants and they were making me really sick. And so I couldn't really figure out what was going on in my body. But when I did labs like food sensitivity testing, all of my immune markers were like through the roof. You know, every food that I tested for, lit up like a Christmas tree. And I was like, wow, my body is just in this inflamed state. And I went to my doctor, and because I had this crazy rash all over my body. And I was like, I don't know what's going on with me. And she tested this rash and she's like, no, it's not an infection. You just have like general inflammation. And let's just put a cortisone cream over it to just
Oh
like
boy.
suppress it. Right. And I was like, my body is literally, I mean, you wouldn't believe it if I showed you pictures. I mean, it was
Mhm.
like this raging, angry rash that was
Oh
just
my
spreading
goodness.
all over my body. And I was like, this is my body
Is it
screaming.
painful?
Like, no, not at all. It didn't
It was
itch.
just
It
there.
wasn't
Okay.
painful. It didn't bother me, but it looked angry.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I had all these raised bumps all over my arms and my legs. And my face was like, my face looked like puffy. My cheeks were red. I just had, like, you could tell I had so much inflammation. I had all
Yeah.
these food sensitivities. And I was like, this is not good. I don't know if I have an autoimmune disease or if I'm headed down the path of having one, but like my body is screaming at me. And this lady wants to like slap a cortisone cream on my skin to try to make it go away.
Yeah.
One, the cortisone cream didn't even work. Two, I was like, this is a really big red flag that I need to address. So I was really trying to do all of the things. When I got my food sensitivity report from whoever I did the testing through, I talked to their medical team and they're like, yeah, we would really suggest that you eliminate everything that showed up as a red and a yellow. And
Mm.
I'm like, that's almost everything that we've tested for of these 180 foods. This
Wow.
is like the main food that I eat. What do you mean? And he's like,
Mhm.
well, yeah, I get that. This would be really difficult. You don't have to, but this is from a science perspective, this is what I would suggest. So it really put me into like a lot of overwhelm, and
Sure.
I wanted my body to heal and to be healthy. So I did, and I restricted all the things as best that I could. But it shifted me towards a really obsessive focus towards food. And it
Mhm.
was like the more food I cut out, the harder and more challenging it got.
Yes.
And I think it was, yeah, or like revving up my stress hormones. And I remember thinking, like, well, what is this the best thing for my health right now? Because at this point, I am like obsessed with food. I'm trying to only keep like 5 foods in my house. I'm losing control over my food. And it was like, I didn't trust myself with food. So I was trying to keep everything out of the house. And it was really, really, really overwhelming. And it felt like the harder that I tried, the further I got from my body feeling like it was getting healthy and getting in alignment. And so,
Mhm.
one, it was helpful to get the breast implants out of my body for sure. I think from a physical level, that was a big part of my healing.
Yeah.
But that whole experience sent me into a much deeper journey into exploring my relationship with my food and being able to make changes. And I think that the extreme restriction was so much that I think my body was just in a state of fight or flight all the time. And I don't think the healing actually happened until I learned how to create peace with all of it and peace with
Mhm.
my food and my body and let go a little bit and relax into it and really not get so focused on doing the right thing and the wrong thing, but really learning how to listen to my body. And so as a dietitian, I no longer give people meal plans and calorie counting and things like that and things that use their head and the right and the wrong rules, but I really teach them how to listen to their body and make peace with their food and really bringing it all like into harmony with wherever you're at.
That's amazing.
It's been
I've
a
heard,
journey.
yeah, no, I've heard parts of your story, but there are definitely some in there that I
Hmm.
didn't know.
Yeah.
Thank you for sharing.
Hmm.
Can you tell us a little bit more about how you work with clients if somebody were to come to you with, in a similar situation that you were in, like a few more specifics, how
Hmm.
you would tell them if they're like, what do I do? Where do I start?
Yeah. It
Or
can
I've
feel
been told to eliminate
overwhelming.
all these all these foods.
It's a tricky thing, right? Because it's like, the science part of your brain is like, don't eat these things, but then your nervous system is like freaking out. So I think that it's not that you can't eliminate those foods, but I think that coming into a place of safety and connection with your body, I think is really, really important. And so where I used to like throw all the science and all the protocols at people and like, don't eat these foods. I mean, I used to work for one of the top health resorts in the world, and we did a lot of lab testing, a lot of functional medicine. I learned so much about functional medicine and autoimmunity there, and so I was very eager to like give people these programs and elimination diets and testing and protocols. And I think ultimately it created a lot of stress for people, even though I was giving them things in sound science. And so now I would do things a lot differently than what I did then. I think there's a combination between noticing how does certain food make your body feel? And when you are trying to, let's say, not eat gluten because it doesn't make you feel good, really feel and get curious with what is happening when you take away that food from your environment or not eating it. How does it make you feel? What does it bring up in you? And instead of avoiding it and being at war with it, we can start to create a different relationship with it. So, a lot of these foods, we develop a certain attachment to it, or it makes us feel a certain way. So,
Mm-hmm.
let's say if we like grew up and eating our mom's bread made us feel really good and comforted during a difficult time. And now we try eliminating it and we're feeling that comfort from like the bread and how it made us feel. Getting rid of it might create this feeling of like, I'm missing comfort, or I don't have safety, or I don't have, what is it bringing up when we feel the difficulty with getting rid of some of the foods? And if we can explore that, we can find what it is that we're really needing and why it might feel really painful and difficult to let go and open up our grip on some of these foods. Where we want to get to is a place where if we find that a food has been bringing us love or comfort or safety, if we can be so in the discomfort of that experience when we choose to let it go and really get curious with it and feel what it is, I can give myself what it is I'm always needing. What was my heart needing when I needed comfort, when I needed
Mm-hmm.
safety? Am I needing that right now? And that's what this food is providing for me. And because ultimately, when we understand that relationship, we can kind of let go of some of those foods a lot more easily. We might like the way that they taste, but
Yeah.
it's not so overwhelming and triggering to our nervous system to let some of them go, to say letting this go is honoring my body, and it feels like love and it feels like care and it feels like nurturing. But
Yeah.
if it feels like fear and restriction, we might not quite be ready to let that food go. We might need to actually spend time with the fear that comes up when we choose to let a food go. We might want to spend time loving and listening to that place of fear that it creates in our bodies. And so where I know that I dove really deep into this with you from a question like, where do I start with people? I like to help them get curious with their body and their experience and develop a relationship to it so that they're not forced into anything. But as they're making changes, they can feel, does this feel like fear, or does this feel like I'm nurturing my body? If it feels overwhelming and like fear, maybe I don't have to change something just yet. And I can just be and learn from that fear and what it's trying to tell me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I've learned so much from mastering mindfulness
Hmm.
that there are so many layers to what we are craving or think we
Yeah.
want food wise. And can you go a little bit into the conscious and subconscious mind and what what each of those do and how they're different and the
Sure.
percentages that you had given? I think that's
Yeah. So our mind plays such a huge role in why we do what we do, why we eat what we eat. And it's really like poorly understood. So we have like our conscious mind. If you think of an iceberg, your conscious mind, you can think of it as being like the tip of the iceberg. And that's about 5% of our brain power. And that's like what we're aware of. That's where we use willpower from. That's where we're like, I'm going to eat the healthy foods. And we like, is what like we have this awareness of. And we think that our conscious mind is what drives our decision making because that's what we're aware of. But really, deep underneath that is the deeper depths of the iceberg. And that's our subconscious mind. It's kind of out of our awareness. That's where we have feeling. It's where we have our beliefs. That's where we have a lot of things from childhood gets programmed into our mind. And scientists estimate that about 95% of our behavior is controlled by the subconscious mind. So when we just use things like meal plans and rules and health information, we're only using about 5% of our brain power of what's actually influencing all of our food choices. And this isn't something that you learn when you go to school to be a nutritionist or a dietitian. Nobody ever taught us this. So for me, when I couldn't figure out and I was self-sabotaging and I couldn't figure out why do I do what I do, and I was in this frustration, that's kind of the clue that you get is when you have those words like, oh, like, why do I always do this? And then we berate ourselves and it's like this lack of understanding, but what we don't see is what's underneath the surface and that iceberg of what's really driving about 95% of our behaviors. So what are the types of things that program our subconscious mind? It could be your beliefs that got created when you were a child, maybe your beliefs about food. For example, this is a really good example. This is one that I see show up a lot. It's really, really common. But let's say you're a child and you didn't have enough food to eat growing up. Maybe you had a bunch of siblings. Maybe family didn't have a lot of money. And so you had to like scramble to hurry up and eat food, and you never felt like there was enough food. Well, your subconscious mind is learning from this experience and it's programming, there's not enough food in the world. Food is scarce. I need to eat more. I need to try and get as much food as I can in order to be safe, to actually be safe. And that's what your subconscious mind is getting programmed to believe. So this creates like the infrastructure, the full psyche that controls our behavior. So now as you grow up, you're programmed with this infrastructure in your mind that says food is scarce. So as you grow up, you might actually become an adult, you start working, you're making money, you have access to food. Food scarcity isn't an issue, but you've been programmed with this belief system that food is scarce. So now it feels like a natural, intuitive response to overcompensate and overeat. So you're constantly overeating because that's what your belief system is. But then your health starts getting off track, and your conscious mind is like, oh, we better get in shape. We need to cut back how much we're eating. So then you try restricting your food, but you feel like you're triggering a lack of safety. And you're like, whoa, this feels not safe. And you rebound and you binge eat. And then it's like you try to restrict again and it feels unsafe. So now you have your conscious mind that's like, I need to get healthy. Your subconscious mind that's like, food is scarce. I need to overeat for my protection. And it feels like this two opposing forces going in opposite directions. And it doesn't actually feel safe to your body. So now this person who's using their conscious mind is like, what is wrong with me? Why can't I diet? Am I broken? Why can't I do this? But they have this subconscious belief that's trying to protect them, that's driving 95% of their behavior and keeping them safe. Does that make sense?
Totally. Yes. And I think I could hear it over and over again and like hear little bits of mind-blowing things. Can you tell us some things to do to tap into the subconscious?
Yeah. So it takes a little bit of practice and it takes time and it takes trust. There's a book that I thought was really cool by Robert Wright. He wrote this book called Why Buddhism is True. And in one of the concepts that he talks about is he says, in the back of our mind, in our subconscious mind, in the default mode network, we have all of this decision making happening. Should I eat the cookie? Should I not eat the cookie? Should I exercise? Should I not? And we don't even have awareness that these decision-making processes are happening out of our awareness. And he says the one that gets propelled forward into our conscious mind is the one that is fueled by the strongest emotion. So if you decide I'm going to eat the cookie, or if you decide I'm going to not exercise and lay on the couch, whatever decision has the most emotion, the strongest feeling behind it is the decision that gets propelled forward. And that's the one that we choose to do. So one of the things that is very helpful to get to know ourselves and why we do what we do is to start by exploring our feelings, by checking in with our body in the morning and noticing what is the feeling, what feelings are present for me today, and then holding that awareness throughout the day, checking in. I really cultivated a lot of connection with my body and my feelings by checking on myself just like I was a little kid. I would start checking in, like, because I had no awareness of my feelings when I was in this place of like, why do you always do this? Why don't you have self-control? I had the first mentor that I ever hired to help me. He said, I want you to check in with yourself like you're a little kid. And so I did that. And I would check in. I'd be like, okay, Gina, how are you? And I'd be like, okay, we're a little anxious. Okay, what do we need? All right, we're feeling a little scared today. And I would start really developing a relationship to my feelings and noticing how my feelings were propelling different decision making. And I think that creating the safety to do that allows us to explore our subconscious. Because if you think about it, your subconscious mind, it takes your experience out of your awareness and almost like hides it to protect you.
Mm-hmm.
So we don't have things in our awareness if we don't feel safe to feel it, to explore it. When we create a safe space to explore our feelings or our experience, things start to move out of our subconscious mind and into our conscious mind, into what we become aware of. And it's what you become aware of that you can start to change and experience. There's a really great quote by Carl Jung who says, until you make the unconscious conscious, it will rule your life and you'll call it fate. So it's like if you keep being run by these things in your unconscious or your subconscious mind, it's just going to control your behaviors. And you're just going to say, well, that's just my destiny. That's just my fate. But when we create the safety and the love to just feel our feelings and feel what's there and explore our patterns, things start to move into our awareness and then we can start doing something with it. So to answer your question, I would say starting to check in on our feelings because our feelings really drive our behavior and checking in on them throughout the day.
Yeah, that I was thinking about just how fast paced, the world is today and everybody is, and who's got time to slow down and check in with themselves. And when you get up first thing in the morning, like it's an easy thing to like put off. Do you have any little tips of how to help
Yeah.
somebody out? Like just starting that. Something came to my mind was just setting an alarm to check in, like different alarms throughout the day. But
Yeah. I want to challenge that. Our words are really powerful.
yeah,
And think of the power of the words of like, I don't have time to check in with myself.
yeah,
And sometimes it's because we've been putting other people first that we're not used to even saying, I'm worthy of pausing for 30 seconds to say,
right.
hey, how you doing? Right.
Mhm.
Sometimes it's that we haven't had the accountability to do it and we need to set like an alarm and that's okay. I did that. I set my alarm for 2 times in the day, one in the morning and then one at actually no, I think I set 3 alarms. When I was first starting, I set three. I did one in the morning, one at noon, and one at 4 p.m. to check in with
Mhm.
myself. And it was just a little notification that would go off on my phone and it said, take a breath. And I would take a breath and just check in. And so being careful of using the words of like, but I don't have time,
Right.
because that can really control our experience. And also, I think challenging, where do we use words like that in order to avoid our experience?
Yeah.
When we say I don't have the time, or when we judge our own experience, oh, I'm so critical of myself, I'm so judgmental of myself.
Yeah.
That judgment is protection. It protects us from actually just feeling what's present and feeling what's there. So there's different ways that we can avoid really being in our experience, and there's an opportunity to have a really hard look at it and say, is the story that I'm telling myself true, that I don't have time to check in with myself? Maybe it's not something that you're used to doing. That
Yeah.
could absolutely be true. And so maybe like a check in, a clock could be a really great way to start cultivating that habit. And if there's still resistance to it with an alarm, with a check in, maybe what's the feeling that I'm not wanting to feel right now?
Yeah. Yeah. Those are all really, really good points. Very
There,
good
there
points.
are
And
they're
I wasn't saying
honest
I don't have
questions.
time. No,
Totally. I know.
no,
I know,
I'm,
but I know a lot of people are. I know a
yeah.
lot of people are listening saying that, like, that sounds really great. And right. And I want you to take an honest look. Do you grab your phone and check your
Yeah.
Instagram or your emails in the morning? And you're telling me you don't have time to pause?
Right.
Or is there an avoidance strategy that's really happening? And
Yeah.
even sometimes saying, like, oh, but I have to take care of everyone else in my life. And I want to challenge you that sometimes taking care of everyone else is a really great avoidance strategy from being with yourself and your own feelings. And I know that it's really, really
Yes.
hard, but it's a way that we can start developing like a more intimate relationship behind why we do what we do, why we feel overwhelmed, why we feel stressed. We can start moving closer towards our feelings and our relationship with food that maybe has been hard to look at.
Totally. Yeah. Oh, so many good nuggets there.
But it's so freeing on the other side when you understand yourself.
Sure.
It's so freeing. Then you're not actually controlled by your cravings. You're not controlled by your food anymore, your stress or your overwhelm. You can let go of having to do everything and I don't have enough time and start just tuning into like, okay, how am I feeling? What do I need right now? What
Yeah.
does my body need right now? And really starting to build that trust with yourself.
Yeah. So good. Um, okay, so food cravings, something that I've learned from you is, so what are food cravings and what is our body trying to tell us through those cravings? Talk a little bit about that. And then I have something else to say about it in a second after you.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, food cravings are so misunderstood. All of our bodies have this mechanism. If you have food cravings and you think that, you're broken, your body is designed the same way as everyone else's body is designed. And so the question is, why is my mechanism activated and somebody else's is not activated? So the reason why we crave food, we get like this magnetic pull towards food is typically when our stress system gets turned on. And so your brain is always scanning everything to make sure that there's safety. It's scanning your environment, it's scanning the inside of your body, and it's looking for a threat to your survival. So if you feel safe and you feel calm, that's your prefrontal cortex working in your brain. It gives you really good rational thinking and willpower. So if you ever notice on a day that you feel really happy and the sun is out and you're like, I'm motivated, I'm eating this salad, I'm never eating cookies again. It's like you have this really great willpower, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then if you ever have a moment where you have so much willpower and then 2 seconds later, it's like something takes over your brain and you go into like this hypnosis and you like grab a food and you overeat. Maybe I shouldn't even say you, I should say me. Like that's the experience that I've had where I'd have so much motivation and willpower. And then all of a sudden I would grab a food and I'd go into this hypnosis or whatever. And I would self-sabotage. And and then my brain would come back online and I'd be like, what just happened? Why did I do that? You had all these food goals. Well, if my brain perceived that there was a stress either in my environment, something happened, if I didn't feel safe in my environment, or internally, if I didn't feel safe, if there was an emotion that I didn't want to feel, or something I was uncomfortable with, or let's just say I was fasting too long and my body was like, oh my gosh, this isn't safe. Or if there's any sign of not being safe, a different area of your brain will work. It's called your amygdala. Its job is to keep you safe. It's your fight or flight brain. That's the number one priority. Your goals and your willpower is not the priority for the body. The body is like, we need to keep this human safe. So the amygdala will take over and your entire body's physiology will shift. Willpower goes down and you go into this very animalistic like state. You're like in tunnel vision, you're like magnetic, you're like hunting for whatever the food is that makes you feel safe.
Mm-hmm.
And your appetite goes up, food tastes sweeter. There is research that shows that when we're in this state, our taste buds actually change shape. Their physical shape will change to make food taste sweeter and better so that you're like in this state of like craving more food. And so I would feel that this like animalistic like response where I'm like, must get the food like a tiger and then lose control, eat the food. And then when your body gets the excess calories or the food, then it receives the information. The information has been processed that you have enough food. Great. The human lives another day. Now our prefrontal cortex comes back online and that's our rational thinking. And it's like, what just happened? Why would you do that? You just had so much willpower 10 minutes ago. You have goals. You swore you weren't going to do this. And then on comes the shaming and the
Yeah.
beratement that we do to ourselves. So what is so important to know is that we all have this animalistic like response. And the stronger your craving is, the stronger you have that feeling, the more that your body is perceiving that there's a threat to your survival. And so the key is not to take away and keep the food out of the house because you're still in this animalistic like state and it's going to feel really hard. You're going to feel
Mm-hmm.
like when I don't, it's going to feel very, very difficult. It's almost impossible. At some point, you end up losing and you lose trust with yourself. I can't trust myself. I can't trust my body. But it's actually understanding how to work with this mechanism. I don't need to restrict more. I need to create more safety in my body.
Hmm.
So that gives us the point of exploration. And so I have found that when I shamed my cravings and myself, I didn't understand it and I felt controlled by it. But when
Hmm.
I'm making changes, when I create safety in my body, when I regulate my nervous system, when I'm understanding what my body needs, I get out of that animalistic like state. And so now, before, it felt very painful to let go of things like gluten and sugar and things I was trying not to eat. It was felt like a war. Now,
Hmm.
if I choose, hey, I don't want to eat gluten because I don't think it's good for my body, it's just like, it's fine. Like I can give it, I love it. I still love the taste of bread, but I'm not like in this
Right.
primal, I can't do it kind of feeling. It's an entirely different experience by regulating the nervous system and creating safety
Yep.
in the body.
Cool. Thank you for sharing that. The other piece that I wanted to talk about with food cravings that I learned from you was when you do have that craving, or when I do have the craving for whatever it is, to stop, like to pause, right?
Hmm.
And to ask what your body needs, like actually needs.
Yeah.
And that these cravings, we've been taught by the diet industry that they're bad, but we actually need to listen to them. It's our body trying to tell us something, whether we need what comfort, pleasure,
Yeah.
all those all those things. I thought that was I love.
Yeah. You've totally got it. You're so on point. Like I love that you have that really locked in for yourself because you're absolutely right. And having that just that knowledge alone can take you so far of knowing like, okay, what I really need to do right now is pause and break this autopilot impulsive response, which most people are like impulsively grabbing. We don't even know what's happening in our experience, but to really pause and get curious with our experience and say like what is it that I'm really needing right now, like I'm in overwhelm or I'm stressed or this feels like fear or I'm craving love or I'm craving connection or what is it that I'm really wanting in this experience when I'm craving a food, because it's really typically not actually about the food. We just
Yeah.
haven't created enough awareness in the experience to really see what it is that we're really craving.
Yeah. Yeah. It's so true. And a lot of times, or sometimes, I think I've told you this, but sometimes I don't want to pause and that makes me angry. And I'm like, I don't want to pause. I just want what I want.
Yeah,
But then I do.
right.
Then I
Totally.
do.
Yeah. And sometimes we don't, right? And that's
Yeah.
okay too.
Right.
I just had a student recently message me and say, like, I know I'm supposed to pause, but I'm not pausing. How do I make myself pause? And on the flip side, get curious and love the part of you that's not ready to pause. Like, what's not ready to pause? It's okay. And get curious and love on that part. And it's like, oh, the part of me that is actually finding a lot of pleasure in not being mindful. Like,
Yeah.
it feels like an escape. It feels like freedom. Ah, okay. That's why you're not ready to pause. It feels like there's freedom in not being mindful and being mindless. Like, be with that for a minute, that I'm
Yeah.
actually getting something out of not pausing, and that's okay too.
Oh, yeah, that was nice and true and well
Right?
said and well said.
Yeah. I mean, that's something that's really, really common, especially for mothers. I'm not a mother, so I can't fully relate to this, but I can really imagine. And I remember talking to this woman who was a mother and just so and working and doing everything. And she's like, she goes, I'm kind of triggered by you, but I need your help. I'm like, I get it. Lay it on me. She's like, it kind of pisses me off because I see your posts and I get it. And you're like, pause, listen to your body. And I know I should do that. And I'm just not doing that. Well, I'm frustrated. I'm mad at myself. And I was like, okay, let's ask your body. What is that? And she's like, I don't know. There's nothing there. There's resistance. And I was like,
Mhm.
let's be with that resistance. What is that? And she's like, oh, it's frustrated. It's overwhelmed. And I was like, okay, so go into that place where you don't want to listen to me. You don't want to be mindful and listen to your body. What is that moment like? And she's like, oh, it feels like freedom. It's the 1 minute that like I get to just feel like pleasure and not have to constantly take care of somebody else and answer to anybody. It's like, I don't want to think about what's happening. I don't want to think about how much food I'm eating. I want to be in freedom.
Yeah.
Great. That's a beautiful place to begin. Now you can know that your heart and soul is craving the feeling of freedom. Where else can you start shaping your life to give yourself that experience of freedom? And I wonder if maybe that the mindlessness will start to gently loosen its grip a little bit because you're creating freedom in what you're looking for in your life. And she's like, oh, that makes so much sense. I'm
It
so
does.
tired. I just like, thank you for letting me have freedom. And I'm like, yeah, totally. Like your mindful eating will happen. Your connection, your awareness is going to happen when you realize that like the mindlessness is actually giving you something that you really need right now.
Oh, yeah. I'm like, can we all have a Gina in our back pocket who can talk us?
Well, just listen to this podcast and
Yeah, you're
here we
right.
are,
You're
right?
right. You're right.
Totally. I get it. I so get it. I so understand. It's been such a journey for me of yeah, coming from this place of compassion and just asking these questions of like what is completely okay about me having this experience like and we just it's just deeper understanding and with that love and compassion, then we can start to really like change our lives in such a different way. We don't have to force. We just give ourselves what our bodies are always needing, our hearts, our souls are really, really asking to receive.
Yeah. Yes. Yes, yes. Okay, so with you, I've also learned, to connect the mind and body. And I want to talk a little bit about like in what ways does trauma, big or small, or emotional distress contribute to disconnection from our bodies
Yeah,
and how go into a little bit how that might impact our management of like autoimmune disease.
sure. Absolutely. So we all experience some level of trauma. Every person
Yeah.
does. We think of trauma as being the big things, and it can be the really big traumatic things that happen. Some people have been exposed to really hard things. It could also, you know, be very small things like, I mean, a small trauma could be how you interpreted your life. Like your mom left for work and you were with a babysitter, but as a child, you're like, oh my God, I'm being abandoned because you don't know what's happening.
Yeah.
And so we experience these things in the world but what can happen is if we have a really difficult experience, a big an emotional experience, and we didn't feel safe to feel the feelings, or maybe we didn't feel physically safe. Maybe there was not physical safety in the household or emotional safety, or there's yelling or drinking or chaos, or like many children do experience at any point what happens is known as a mind body split. And so, if let's say, like many of us were not, didn't, we're told that our feelings are bad. Like, let's say you're a child and you're like, if you don't stop crying, you're going to go in timeout. And maybe you were put in timeout and you had to be by yourself, or you were physically spanked, or you're in trouble for feeling these sad feelings. And then at any moment in life, you're like, oh my gosh, right? Your subconscious is programmed that sadness is bad, fear, anything is bad, it's going to feel really unsafe in your body.
Yeah.
So, what feelings are in our bodies? So, if you had an intense experience and you feel all these feelings, well, you actually will move your awareness of your body, your feeling, your connection with your feelings, your hunger, your sensations in your body, and you move your awareness up into your mind. And your mind does this to try to protect you to keep you safe. And so when we're born, our mind and our bodies are in harmony together. They work together in partnership. But if the feelings were bad or the physical safety wasn't there, you will move your awareness up into your mind for protection. And now the body becomes like the enemy. The body
Mm.
can't be trusted. So we
Hmm.
experience like this mind body split where your awareness goes up into your mind. And then we start living a life in our minds, a lot of thinking, a lot of anxiousness, thinking about the future. We have a lot of food cravings here because our mind's job is not to properly sense hunger and fullness. And so those sensations get really distorted. And so now we live off of craving in the mind, and it gets really confusing. We can't tell if we're hungry, if we're full, if we're craving a food, if we're not craving. Like, we don't really understand what's happening. And then
Yeah.
we're like, yeah, I don't trust my body. I need to medicate away my hunger, my appetite. I need willpower. I need to, surgically remove my stomach because I just can't trust this body
Yeah.
is my enemy. So really the mind is there to for protection, but when we get held in this state, we start to become numb from our bodies. We don't feel our hunger, our fullness. We might not even feel our feelings, and so we might not even feel happiness or sadness. We might feel nothing, and then it just kind of feels empty. And that's when we can start to needing food or stimulation outside of us to create some sort of a feeling inside of us, because
Yeah.
we're in this state of like missing a feeling, and it feels like something is missing. A lot of the time when people start working with me, they'll say, there's just something that's missing and I don't know what it is. I've lost this inner spark that I lost this
Oh,
knowing of myself,
yeah.
because there's like this disconnection from feeling, from knowing ourselves, like our heart, our soul. It's like it's in our body. And then when you're living in your mind, remember, your mind's job is to keep you safe. So it's living in a state of like fear or doubt or I can't. So part of that, being able to trust yourself again, trusting in your hunger, in your fullness, and I guess also related to autoimmunity, there can be a loss of trust with our bodies. My
Hmm.
body turned against me, and we know that the immune system gets dysregulated from stress. So
Hmm.
emotions, our chronic cortisol, our chronic, when trauma happens, that can get programmed into our subconscious mind that I'm not safe. And we
Yeah.
can end up living decades with this underlying chronic belief system of I'm not actually safe.
Hmm.
And so part of the healing is restoring safety in the mind. And if you're not actually physically or emotionally safe, that's priority.
Hmm.
Priority is number one, getting yourself into a physically or emotionally safe environment.
Right.
And then number two would be upgrading the mind to know, hey, and this might require support. You might need to see a trauma specialist. You might need to get outside support or mentorship to retrain the mind to know that you are safe and to begin to feel safe in feeling your feelings again. And then awareness can start to safely come from the mind and move back down into the body, where the body is no longer the enemy. If I believe that it's safe to sometimes feel sadness because I'm a human being and it's okay. Some days I might feel sad or I might feel anxious or scared, and I can love and hold that part of me. Now the mind and body can reunite again, and they can start being in partnership. I can start feeling sensation again. I might start feeling happiness and sadness, but I'm feeling more, I'm living more. I might feel I might feel my real hunger and my real fullness again. And I'm not being driven by craving and the distortions in my mind. And so I start to trust in my body and trust in that feeling again. And then the nervous system calms down. And what
Mm.
happens you could probably tell me what happens in autoimmunity when our nervous system calms down and feels safe. And what does that do for immune regulation, right? Like,
Yeah.
a lot can happen when we
So
start,
much.
yeah,
So
healing
much. And,
kind of deep.
symptoms lessen.
Yeah.
Yeah. You get energy, less brain fog.
Hmm.
Um, yeah.
Yeah, it's beautiful what can happen when we look at healing as a deeper level than just, oh, don't eat the gluten and the sugar, but it's like, what is my mind, body, and soul like really needing, right?
Yes. So the nervous system is huge, like we just said, for autoimmunity and keeping it calm. And
Yeah.
when we can do that and have our mind and our bodies in harmony together, it's, I know that's a good feeling. I'm like, I'm not in it at the moment, but it's, it's really neat to put it into that perspective. I'm sure there are a lot of people listening that have never heard it put that way.
Totally.
And a lot of the things
Yeah.
that you've said, I'm sure have never even really been thought about. Um,
Mhm.
let's see. So the last question I have for you, just what are some first steps that you would recommend to somebody looking to embrace mindfulness as a tool for managing their autoimmune disease?
Mhm. Yeah, I know we opened up a lot today, a lot to
I
think
know I
about.
bounce around. I also bounce around a ton.
I know. We just opened up a lot of ideas,
Yeah.
probably a lot of things that have been really new to you, big shifts, talking about the subconscious and cravings and opening up so many different new avenues to explore. But what I would say is that mindfulness is really about having more awareness and creating a deeper relationship with yourself. I don't believe that our health is our ability to hold on as tight as we can to follow somebody else's rules and programs. Our health is really the relationship that we have with ourselves, being able to listen to what it needs and tend to those parts. And if we get too caught up in our minds and right and wrong, it can lead us into obsession and overwhelm and confusion. And so, where we can really begin is just to start to develop a closer relationship with ourselves and our bodies. And so, what I like to do is to just wake up in the morning and just check in on myself. And I'm like, ah, and for me, I start with how am I feeling? Sometimes that's really the only thing that
Yeah.
I check on. Okay, there's anxiousness today, or today I feel excited, or today I feel content. But feelings are really like a compass that can tell us a lot, and it'll influence our food choices. It'll tell us what we're really needing and what our bodies might be needing that day. And so I
Do
check
you
in on
journal
like how I'm
them
feeling. What's that?
ever? Do you journal them or do you think it and then move on? Or
I
it depends.
When I first started, I journaled a lot and I woke up and I would start writing. I don't anymore.
Yeah.
Now the only writing I do is sometimes if there's like a thought that I want to get out or if there's things that I want to write about, or typically I'm journaling about like ideas that I have that come through. But
Yeah.
when I started, I needed some accountability to create a closer relationship. It does take effort to take the time to journal or to feel or lean into these uncomfortable places until it becomes just very natural. Now I don't think about it. I don't need to schedule it or set a timer. I'm just like, how are we doing here? What do I need? Does my body need food? Does it need water? Does it need movement, rest, stretching, exercise? And I'm just like, how are we doing here? Let me check in on my team, right? This is my
Yeah.
squad. I got to make sure we're good. My team is doing good. But I think just starting to cultivate a practice, knowing that you're not your thoughts and just having awareness of your thoughts. What are the thoughts that I'm having? Are they helpful? Are they empowering?
Mm,
How are my feelings? Is there fear here that needs to be loved and taken care of instead of restricted before I start making food changes? Would it feel good to nourish my body with some more vegetables and some water? How can I really just care for myself and have my own back? And so I think mindfulness is just actually checking in throughout the day and starting to have a deeper relationship with yourself. And that's going to open up so much more possibility to just continuing to learn about yourself and grow and know how to navigate things when you do need to make some changes and what happens when cravings come up or things like that. It's really about having that relationship with yourself.
oh, yes, it is. That was so good. I swear
Yeah.
I could have you on, 5 podcasts in a row because there's so
Oh,
much to unpack, I feel like,
yeah.
that
It's
I've
never
learned.
ending.
But
It's
it's
yeah.
good.
Yeah, it is. And that's why you can just like relax into it. It's so easy to get like, oh, I have to figure everything out. And it's just like, this
Oh
is a
man.
lifelong journey. It is for me, it is
Yeah.
for everybody else. And so it's like there's no rush. You're right where you need to be. You're learning everything about yourself as you're ready to receive it. If you're not ready to change, maybe be with that like, oh, I need some safety right now. My life has been chaos or like, right, we can just be exactly where we are.
Yeah. That was me years ago, feeling like I had to do everything, all the things
Yeah.
right then. Like eliminate
Yeah.
everything. Let me clean out my house from all the toxins and all the
Yeah. I get it.
all the things.
Yeah.
But we just take a deep breath and take one thing at a time and
For sure.
tap into ourselves and ask ourselves, what do we need? How are we feeling for that
Hmm.
day? That's where we
Totally.
can start, right?
Hmm.
Well, Gina, thank you so much
Mm.
for spending some time with us on here.
Yeah.
And everybody listening, thank you so much for joining us. Again, this is Chronic Conversations. I am your host, Katherine Williams, and we look forward to our next podcast next month. Thank you. Thank you so much for joining me on this episode of Chronic Conversations. I hope you're walking away with a little more clarity, hope, and inspiration for your healing journey. If you enjoyed today's episode, I'd love for you to like, subscribe, and share it with someone who needs it. Every share helps this show reach more women who deserve to feel seen, heard, and validated. And if we're not connected yet, come say hi on Instagram. I'm at Call Me Katherine Rose. Plus, you can check out free tools and resources for your wellness journey anytime at callmekatherinerose.com. And until next time, take care. And here's to thriving well, no matter where you are on your journey.